All right. Well, I am live for my vlog, and unusually, I typically do this just on my YouTube, kind of as a private vlog. I was kind of thought it was fun and cathartic, and I've had fun with it. But this time, my vlog talks about a few things that I figured lived in LinkedIn land, and I wanted to speak towards them in LinkedIn land. So if you are there, please chat and let me know you are there. I think LinkedIn sometimes works with Restream, sometimes doesn't, but I'll try to keep an eye on it if you are there. All right. So the purpose of this vlog is really just kind of a recap of what I've done over X number of weeks. And I've even gotten X wrong. This is vlog episode 11, or should be 11. But unfortunately, this is episode 10 in iteration because I skipped last week. And it was just kind of in the chaos of getting ready for boot camp and RSA and driving to Denver and then meeting with people. It just kind of, I don't know, escaped me. So unlike Tom, I have failed already. Tom, I think he said he went through, I think he's never missed an episode potentially. I don't know, but yeah, probably failed here so far. Sorry though. But here I am. So it's been 2 weeks. So I am going to do the 2 week recap real quick of kind of where I've been and what I've done. I'll go through the calendar and talk about a few things. And then we'll dive into cybersecurity boot camp at PAX 8 in Chicago, which was awesome. And that is the title of this episode. That's also the reason I'm streaming this on LinkedIn is I want to thank a few folks and obviously miss a few, so then I'll offend people. So, living the perfect life. But all right, so here's where I've been. In the last 2 weeks, I've added 8 more presentations. And what I did there was, and we'll kind of go through what those prezos were. Let me get my calendar back up here. Okay, so the first presentations are just the regular ongoing the game. We've gone like super nerdy, super tactical, been looking at Cali and looking at new Try Hack Me quite a bit and trying to advocate that people should look at offense as well as defense. And here's what I mean. Like when you think about it, I make this on stage all the time. This analogy is like, would you ever expect a football coach in American football to show up and say that they are, from a defensive perspective, never going to allow a single yard? No, that would be stupid, right? Like that would be ridiculous. We wouldn't believe it. But then in addition to that, would we also expect that coach to have never ever seen how offense works? Like, sure, they've seen it kind of maybe in a basic, but they've never looked at a play sheet. They've never understood blocking assignments. They've never understood any of those things. Would that also be ridiculous? Or they don't know they can lateral. They don't know that they can throw it versus run it. They don't understand those things. They don't know like the quarterback can keep it. Wait, the set. What? Wait, what? They could. Okay, this doesn't make sense, right? So like it's that kind of situation. And so I've been making this advocation that we do this all the time in cybersecurity. We act like we are the defenders, that we're going to protect this, and we have no idea how the threat actors do what they do. And so it's kind of one of those things where I advocate that you should go and learn those things, at least some people in your organization, so that you can then make educated decisions on how effective things are at measuring risk. I think that's the biggest thing is we're trying to make a translation to risk, and then we're making some assumption that, well, I put in this EDR that removes 2 units of risk. Well, does it? And in what way? And like, what are the things? And like, anyways, I digress. So I've, that was the game. We have those episodes every week, and we had 2 since we last spoke. Actually, no, we have not. We've had 1 since we've last spoke, and that's because we skipped last week because of boot camp, which I'll get to. So it was really neat. On the first week that I'm speaking of, I drove to Denver with Kat and brought the doggo with me, and then got to Denver, had some awesome conversations with some executive leadership team, and then spent 2 full days just nose down with Taylor Keith and Spencer and Dom Kirby and a few others to just work on boot camp and get ready for cybersecurity boot camp for the 100 and some odd people showing up. And we're going to get into that. Okay. And then had lunch with SourcePass, which is dope. I got to go with Nicole Malley and a few others and Dom and go see Nathan Taylor and Derek Schulte and a few other humans. I'm going to have great time meeting with them and seeing their new digs in their new office and their Microsoft Center of Excellence. So I got to record some stuff the next week for that. We got to go see the new digs, I suppose. Did the usual stuff, worked on Trustmark stuff with Chris and everyone. Met for coffee with Josh Hoffman, which is awesome. I haven't seen Josh much, and then he was so kind. It sucks. Like we met at the office rather than at a coffee shop, which would have been much more intelligent. And somebody I saw that I also needed to communicate with, I snagged. It was an executive leadership team. Just made it a joint meeting, but didn't get the direct one time that I kind of promised Josh, other than 10-15 minutes. So kind of felt bad about that. But then drove home, and then spent a couple more days getting ready for boot camp and spending that. I think I did one more presentation. There's this fun thing Zach Kromowski did, which was a misconfiguration madness, where he was comparing one misconfiguration to another, which is kind of hyperbolized because you would hopefully be dealing with both of them, right? As long as the business impact isn't too large to overcome the risk. But anyways, so did that. That was fun. We had a great time. It's where we had an LLM decide which of the configurations was worse in a vacuum. Anyways, then I got up the next morning, went over about 6 or 7 blog concepts with my internal team first thing, and then bootcamp, and that was pretty much it. Had a meeting with the IR team to get ready, irgame.ai team, to be prepared for the bootcamp's portion that was the AI or the tabletop we did. All right, that gets us to the end of week 1. Week 2, we get into flying to Chicago. Got to get to Chicago and then get there and right into it. It's funny, and I'll go through the stats here in a sec, but I think you have all these extensive meetings, and I have to imagine this feels the same way with an MSP and their client and so many other situations I've been in my life. But like you have this meeting or a series of meetings to set expectations, very granular, very detailed, even very detailed over the thing that might come up as the failure, like very detailed meetings with the AV and video crews, and you show up and find out that there's still been a miscommunication, and they're frustrated by it, and you're frustrated by it, and you have to change, and they have to change. But what happened was we needed to put 4 laptop sources up on stage, and that was the whole discussion. That was the way it was discussed, and we needed to switch between 4 sources to 3 in the back. And my guy kind of comes up and goes, "Here's your 4 laptops. We've got them all set up back here in the back of the room." And I was like, first off, I'm bringing the sources, and second, like, they're supposed to be on stage. We talked about this, which meant they had to rewire all of their stuff and send it up to the front of the room. But that's why you have walkthroughs, right? That's why you have day 0. So day 0, got that all sorted away by like 2:00, 3:00. Had to fight through challenge after challenge, right? Getting attack infrastructure up and accessible from inside the hotel can sometimes be a challenge. And kudos to the Chicago Renaissance for having FortiGate firewalls that actually do look for malicious sites and says, hey, that thing's pretty sus. We probably shouldn't go there. So kudos to them. They got the day before Google did. Anyways, but the point is, got that live, got ready, did a quick walkthrough. I mean, I thought the walkthrough would be much longer, but no, we got the walkthrough done in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe something like that, with all the vendors and partners that needed to be a part of it. And so we got through our walkthrough and made it through that day. Then the next day, that's right, we had a security bootcamp dinner with everybody that was involved, right? Successful bootcamp. Thank you, Phil, for being here. Good seeing you. Congrats on the successful backstage security bootcamp. Love to see more of these events. I'm going to dig into it, and I hope it was yeah, I hope more people do it. They'll do it better than I have. They'll do it deeper and more experiential. I'm a visionary and not as great of an integrator, but anyways, yeah, it was very successful thanks to all the integrators around me. It was fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out here in just a minute, but thank you, Phil. Appreciate you being here. Okay, and so that was like the boot camp walkthrough day 0. Everything that could go wrong, I think, did, with infrastructure testing. I think Henry Tim had to buy me a mouse. Like, I left my mouse at home somehow when I was driving the week before. I'd left my mouse in the center console because I was doing some work in the car on my lap desk and just forgot about it. And so I had to have a mouse. Like, Miro is a monster without a mouse, right? Like, it's almost impossible. And I hemmed and hawed. We went to go buy one. I couldn't buy one. Then Henry just Instacarted me a mouse. So thank you, Henry Tim. Big shout out, brother. I love you. Okay. So then we go to dinner. That was great. Got up early and got ready for the day, right? You gotta get through it. Kicked off. I think it kicked off differently than before, but I think better and worse in some ways. Maybe there's a nostalgic effect of the first test run and what the delineation is from 1 to 2. But we kicked it off. We had 106 register, which, I mean, I think we could do a much better job of scaling that on the PAX 8 side. I had somebody go, I wish I'd known about this. I'd have gone. But in time it goes. But we had 106 register. What I'm most happy with is I think 96 showed up. So, like, I don't know if you know those percentages in our industry, but that's ridiculous. The people that do this so well. They gain commitment that people are going to be there. They ensure and follow up and make sure and remind and have people cancel if they're going to cancel and add if they're going to add. And so we have accurate numbers. I mean, 90-something% is just ridiculous. So, to Taylor and team, like, gosh, you guys are rock stars. It's ridiculous. Taylor, Kayla, so many people. Now, if I start naming people, I suck. So I'm gonna stop there. But then we then I think executed, right? Marissa Maldonado kicked it off with her talk about owls and how water is a God-given right, to just absolutely set in stone how dumb this was going to be for the people in the audience, right? Like, I think to just absolutely just line in the sand. I just want you to know what you're signing up for, kind of methodology. But she starts that up and then talks about how you're all now participants in this kind of play or farce of a company that has just received some funding and is now going through securing themselves and is dealing with risk. Obviously, we hyperbolize to the extent that, if you're in water, you'd be managed by the Water ISAC, and you'd be dealing with, CISA and all kinds of government agencies that are knocking and notifying around their turf, right, of these water companies. But that said, it's not all that far-fetched to believe that oversight is changing, that things are happening in which there could be scenarios that there is absolutely this kind of thing playing out. So we built up a scenario where we did 5 kill chains. Like, I guess my discussion of this was like, who does 5? Like, how stupid was that to try to piece that in? We ended up spending 4 hours on day 2 just going through some of the events and looking at stuff. And I didn't think about that scale aspect of actually digging in. So what was the journey? I'll just talk through it real quick. We basically built up a company, had some decisions made by executive leadership that were probably not the best decisions that we see every day. And then that set them up for failure from both an insider threat and an external threat that ransomed them. We built some custom ransomware. Dom Kirby and I spent some time using the archive function and built it out and had fun with Copilot and GitHub for or Copilot for GitHub and all that fun stuff. And just building all that out. Detonated a payload on stage, day 2. And then walked through that there were actually 4 or 5 different payloads that had played out over time, some failing, some successful because of our tools, and used that as a way to like demonstrate the tools. Like, the whole premise for this concept came because 3 years ago, Dom and I asked people at a boot camp to bring only presentation type things. Like, instead of telling me about your VPN solution or your SASE solution, like, set up a scenario where you have some embarrassing picture made up of Dom that you can't access if that VPN is in place. Like, be demonstrative, right? Like, give people a kinesthetic experience of this. And what do you think the vendors did? Anybody in the audience? It's going to be a delay anyway, so I won't have enough time. I can't pause that long. But the point is, like, they just showed up with the same marketing deck, and I was like, no, this is not okay. This is not okay. Like, I said what I wanted. You guys didn't do it. So the next time we said, well, we'll present for you. And that went on for a little while where we kind of just did the presentation, which allowed us to do more of that. But it came to this concept of, like, I just had this idea that we're nerds, and nerds don't mind a role-playing game every now and again. And so what I said was, what if we allowed everybody to kind of, and I don't think we've cracked that nut yet. I think we have to get deeper into the way we do this. But what if we allowed everybody to play a role and be involved in it in a kinesthetic way and make it gamified in some way? And so the first iteration was back in November. It went okay, I think. I mean, Gabby rocked it. Gabby York is like, boss. I mean, if it hadn't been for her, we'd never been down this path. And secondarily, Taylor carrying it on, and I'll have to add to that here in a second, we wouldn't be where we are. But it was one of these things where I wanted to put it together and gamify it, but I wanted people to be able to experience it. In the first iteration, we didn't have any gamification almost at all. It was nothing. We didn't do anything to really gamify it. It was pitched as a murder mystery theater, and we just didn't do that. I mean, I think it was fun. I think it was valuable. I think people walked away from it, and I still think that same truth exists on this one. But it was not as deep, and I have probably created some problems from that first one in this new iteration. I think that's always in life. Everything in life is a give and a take, right? You have something positive, you're always going to take away something negative. It's just a law of equal. So what is it? The Newton's conservation of motion, right? Equal and opposite. I know. Thank you. My son just wanted to come tell me that Pope Francis is dead, so this is the perfect opportunity to mention it on this live stream, which I did see this morning, for any of you that follow or just in general. Yeah, big news. But thanks, Andrew. Back to where I was. Train of thought wise. The boot camp the first time, and what we may have caused the second time, and I'll just go to it. What we added is I added a CTF. I just took a CTF platform. I used CTFD.io. Big shout out to them. Thank you for having a very stable platform that was awesome. we use ctfd.io to kind of gamify it. And we made categories that were tied to the storyline. We made categories that, and that's the difference. I talked about this several times during the conference, but one of the things that I notice is when I go to conferences and enter into a CTF, I want to win. I like to win. I'm a fan of winning. It makes me happy. It gives me my response in dopamine that I like. And so, as most people do, right? And so when you enter into something like that, and then you have a touch of success, you just want to keep going. And so, if you get into a CTF, I found myself missing an entire conference with Jason. We sat down through MIS Econ, the Michigan Security Conference. We literally never saw a single presentation. We literally sat in the CTF room the whole time. And I missed several people that I would have loved to have seen. I think even Malware Jake was there. Several other people were there that I would have loved to have seen that I just didn't see. And then on the other side of that, if I did go see those people, I would not have a chance of winning the CTF, quite likely. So I wanted to bastardize that concept. And I mean, I choose that word choice on purpose. I wanted to take kind of this, wouldn't expect them to be married together, but tie it to a storyline where I'm going to give you flags you can only get if you are pseudo paying attention in the room and able to understand that I just gave you a flag. Right. And then I also wanted to give you flags you could only get by digging in and doing the work and digging into some of the accounts we created, or digging into, and I am so sorry, I had 2 challenges that I made that were broken and nobody told me about it. And they worked on it for 5 hours, and I'm an idiot. And I'm so sorry. I feel how bad that feels to waste someone's time for an unsolvable challenge. I feel terrible. Okay. I want to say that. But we had people being able to work on stuff that forced them to be in the content, that forced them to answer questions. And we made the questions, I hope, somewhat relevant to it. We also used concepts like teaching base 64 encoding versus encryption with Mocryption. 49% of people solved that one. Yeah, we call it Mocryption. I'm sorry for anybody in Missouri. You know why. Mocryption, we helped them understand encoding. We helped them understand encryption delineations, just simple stuff. But in the encoding, we then had these messages from Insider Threat. We had messages, or I'm sorry, from an Insider Hero about an Insider Threat. We had all kinds of fun stuff playing out, and you can imagine, but you can't imagine. You'll have to join us in November when we do it again. But yeah, let me go through some of the stats of that real quick, and then we'll come back and I'll finish off my travel stuff. Okay, scoreboard. We had Watermelon, DNev, and Omnicron take 1, 2, and 3 spots. They got, I think, a ticket to Beyond. That was awesome. They got I love that. You can't just pop in here. No, you're not coming on camera. My wife just popped her head in, basically because I'm talking about the CTF and she knows I'm going to mention her, but not wanting to come on camera. So here we find ourselves again. The elusive cat unicorn. I just snorted. The elusive cat unicorn has disappeared yet again. But anyways, on the scoreboard, Cat, I think, took 11th at the end of it because she couldn't participate in some things she had knowledge of. But there were 2 people, I think, Jay, Kim, and Matherton, maybe it was, that were like 1 and 1 the whole time, just crushing it. They had a little separation right at the end, but they were 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I think they had more experience, probably. Almost everyone else, and the people that did win had never done a CTF before. And I apologize for the terribleness of some of the things I've created for your first CTF, but I also say you're welcome for some of the awesomeness that I hope I've inspired for you to go dig into some of these concepts and learn more. But yeah, Dom, I think we had a reverse C binary and reverse engineering in C that was in there that one did solve. Ghidra, using Ghidra, that I think Jason made. Dom made several crypto challenges. I made several things in there as well. And then Spencer did a ton of these side quest stuff, like chat between these 2 individuals to find out they're stealing from the company, or all kinds of other things. One of the things I want to point out about life and about cyber and about CTFs in general, and it just chokes me up a little bit about this, is like, don't forget that most of what you see that you don't see is the failures. I mean, you see those people on the top, but look at this ratio. There's 64 across the whole board. 64% were wrong, 35% were right, which I actually think if time went on and on harder ones, you'll probably find that being even more ratio towards failures over success, especially as you get into the tougher and tougher problems. So what's interesting about that is that's a pretty high ratio of wrongs before rights. And so what you might find is like it's those that persevere, that continue to pound in, figure it out. I mean, not repeating the same answer over and over again, that we see that too, but like changing, learning, trying, doing something else. Like you're going to try a lot before you succeed. And in my mind, when you hear the word expert just means someone that's failed a lot, right? Like an expert welder has done a lot of crappy welds, other than the select few that are just instant awesome, right? But in general, it's all about the failure and the number of failures that gets you to where you're going to succeed. An athlete tries and tries and tries and tries for that world record and fails most of it until they succeed, right? And it's kind of that point. And same thing with and same thing with CTFs, is that some people just keep going, and they stretch their knowledge, they increase their capabilities, and they succeed. Okay, so really quickly, back to the rest of it. So all in all, I added 8 presentations. I added 8 hours of education. I'm considering those two of that 4 hours that I was teaching in those days as part of education, because we were digging into kill chains. So the other thing I didn't get into is one of the things I like. I'll come back to it. Added 2 flights, 4 hotel nights, just 2 and 2, quick in and outs. 2 ride shares, drove the other trips. So I didn't have any ride shares, 4 trips total, 2 different cities. So I'm at 22 flights, 35 nights, 30 ride shares, 4 trips, 23 cities, 33 hours of education, direct education material, and 60 presentations, 60 separate presentations across the core. That means either live streamed, or in person for the year. So that's this year by the end of Q1, part of Q2 getting into, or halfway through Q2, I suppose. Anyways, all right, that's the numbers, I guess. Unless there's anybody out there, I'll cover the other thing that I was going to talk about, which is one of the things that I've been using lately is kill chains. And I just mean rudimentary, drawn up. Here's the objects that I think happened in order, to then kind of say, well, if that happened, what control or safeguard in the CIS safeguards might have needed to be stronger? Right? Like, for example, one of them is Cisco and the Cisco Talos write-up, the Talos write-up of the Cisco incident of 2022. In that conversation, they they say that the victim user, the initial user, received a series of SMS and sophisticated phishing. They always like to say sophisticated to make it seem a little bit less daunting that somebody just got tricked out of normal human behavior. But sophisticated series of phishing and phishing, emulating their suppliers over several days existed, right? Like over several days. Well, then one could make some conjecture that you haven't well trained your users to recognize and report security incidents. I think that's 14.6. So you can get into this, like, what are the conjectures of failure? Like, what are those modalities of failure? Like, the user didn't know, and then tie that into what safeguard could be better and use that to improve your safeguards as a methodology. So that's kind of the point. But this has gone on long enough. I'm probably right at about 30 minutes, 25 minutes. So the last 2 weeks have been kind of a whirlwind. I'm super happy to be done prepping. My last RSA talk got accepted, the one with Tara Wheeler. We had back and forths. And if you don't know, you're going to go back and forth with the team to make sure you've delivered the product they want. And that's one thing that I think is good about RSA is they are saying, no, you better give large businesses and small businesses something to walk away with. And it needs to be on this slide. It needs to be in these succinct points. It needs to mean this. And so we got that finally done and accepted. So I'm done and ready for RSA. And I have one talk this week that I'm driving somewhere to. And other than that, I will see y'all next week. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for everybody for Bootcamp. Thanks for all the sponsors that helped Bootcamp. You can't do this without it. Please honor those demos that you've made or scheduled, or conversations. Follow up with them, with those vendors. Or if nothing else, just tell them thank you for being there to all the vendors. I'm not going to quote any of them because you can go look at them on the page for Bootcamp, or follow it there. And the Pack State official stuff, I just wanted to speak it out to say thank you to the vendors. And specifically thank you to the vendors that agreed to let our tools be put to the test. Because as we continue to see, new techniques, new tactics are always going to develop, and we're always going to have new things. And so it's nice to let people be willing to let us kind of abuse their tools and such. Has a wild cat appeared, willing to come on camera to say hi at least? Sure. Jeez. Okay. Wow. Look at that. I don't know how I got that. My rating is going to go up at least 100% now. Like, I don't know, maybe 200%. Like, I'll go from negatives to positives. All right. Thank you all for being here. I'll catch you in the next boot camp. Sign up for Beyond. Join us there. We've got some dope stuff happening. I won't talk about it here. This isn't a Pack State channel, but I will say that right now I'm in the middle of kind of the bigger parts of the year. So join us at Beyond, and then please come, as Phil said, to this, love to see more of these events. There is another one. I think I'm allowed to say it now. It's in Hotlanta in November, I believe. Yep. I've got my handler saying yes. So yeah, it's in November for sure. And so we'll start prepping for that. And if you're a vendor that wants to be a part of that, please let me know. And I'd love to see 300 or 400 people come to this one and make the competition even larger and even grander. And it'll also allow us to make even bigger prizes and have more fun. All right. Thank you so much. Big thanks to the crew of this as well. So Jason Slagle, Marissa Maldonado, Jack Skinner, Taylor Keith, myself, Kat Lee. I got to be missing Spencer, Spence Dog Hacklock. Who else am I missing? Am I missing anybody else? Jack, Henry Tim for being our incident responder. I failed on that. I'll go ahead and this is my confessional as well. This particular vlogs usually. I totally failed on that. Like I brought Henry in at the kind of last minute planning to do the incident response and then just dominated the stage for the conversation of that. And I don't think we got the storyline quite right to support it. Didn't give Henry a lot of time on stage to talk, but he did look pretty up there. And he did give some great answers and great conversations around it. And I will also say I hadn't thanked one more set. I got Kat here, so I feel like I have a guardian angel over my shoulder telling me stuff I got to do and thank people. But the audience, holy crap, y'all. Day one, I knew we were screwed. Day one, I knew I had found something because the audience out there was growing and maturing as it always has been. But I also will say the audience really participated. Like once somebody cracked that ice, like when you ask a hard question and somebody doesn't want to answer, and then like that one guy, and I'm pointing at him in my left eye, was seeing him out there on the left side down there. But that one guy speaks up and talks, and everybody goes, yeah, I knew that answer. I can talk. I knew that answer. I should. And then they start talking. And by the end of day one and day two, everybody's talking, challenging concepts, asking hard questions. I saw this one guy when I was talking about the incident, and everybody's like, we call insurance. We call insurance. And this one guy's sitting there with his arms crossed. I said, why you got your arms crossed, man? What's going on? He goes, we don't know enough yet. I was like, no, you're right. We don't know enough. And it just sparked conversation. And we ended up taking an hour and a half to get through something that should have been a 25, 30-minute part. Anyways, I should have known. But great audience. Thank you so much for 2 days of deep diving, being in the seats. There was never a time people were just off mulling around. And I also have to apologize to the vendors. There's a lot of apologies here. I have to apologize to the vendors. Day two, I kept them in their chairs for 3 hours going through the initial kill chain analysis. No breaks, no nothing, no time for the vendors. I'm a terrible human. But anyways, and still yet, the audience was amazing. I think everybody gained something or gave back something, which is also valuable. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'll close it out with this. So